You know the drill. We need to thank VoxOUT Labs. Check out their offering at tropo.com, tropo.com, and get developing today. Also, Sangoma.com, makers of world-class software and hardware for VoIP. If you need equipment, you go to e4strategies.com. Talk to Mike White or the guys over there. They'll fix you up. The VUC PBX is provided by onsip.com. The folks at Junction Networks have been around forever, too. They know what they're doing in this business. Speaking of knowing what you're doing, and all of the previous people too, as I mentioned, but also David Frankel over at ZipDX and his orchestra is providing the great sound. Well, not the music, that's me. ZipDX provides a fantastic conference experience. It's full-featured and wideband. And of course, Voxbone.com throwing in those 50 world cities at local rates that you can call and buy. I just wanted to say that, but we do want to remind you to come to Berlin, April 15th through 17th for Camaillo World. The VUC is having a meetup there, and we're going to do a panel, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're in Europe or you're within range of Berlin with your free flyer miles or whatever, we'll see you there. All right, so much for the intro. Thanking everybody, and first person to thank, we finally got Voxbone on the line here. Dries Blasman, you're Director of Marketing and Product Management, or Dear Man, Prod Man, as we might call you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Randy.
It's great to have you, and you're looking good, and you're sounding good. So without further ado, I would like just a minute or two on generalities of Voxbone, because not everyone knows what you folks do, and then get into the actual thing that you want to talk about, which is VoxOUT. Could you give us just a little quick view from 5,000 meters or whatever?
Yes, so Voxbone, we specialize in DIDs. So Voxbone started in fact this business 7-8 years ago. So what we do is we have telephone numbers, local telephone numbers from 50 countries. In all of these 50 countries, we have local interconnections with a local telephony network provider. So what we do is, for our customers, we sell phone numbers, and for these phone numbers in every country, incoming calls we convert locally to voice over IP, and we send these calls to anywhere in the world over a private voice over IP network. So we do this for various types of customers. An example customer is Skype, who uses Voxbone numbers for Skype in. We have quite a lot of conf call providers who use Voxbone dial-in numbers for the audio conferencing part. And now, an evolution of the last couple of years, we have a lot of hosted PBX or cloud PBX providers who use Voxbone telephone numbers for their hosted PBX service, mostly outside their home country. An example of such a company is 8x8. They are a Voxbone customer. They use Voxbone telephone numbers to offer a cloud PBX service outside US. Something that is important to say as well is we do not only offer new numbers, telephone numbers, we are also capable of porting numbers to our network. So many of the cloud providers, cloud PBX providers, they port in numbers from customers who were until now on a traditional enterprise telephony service, and we help the cloud communication providers to bring that business over to them.
Okay,
is
great.
that good as an introduction? Anyone questions on Voxbone?
Yeah, as Bob mentions, you also provide worldwide access to virtual worlds and online games via VVox or ViVox. I don't know how that's pronounced, but he knows something about that. Okay, so let me let us get into the particular challenge that you folks are answering now, and pretty much the reason for this call, which is, I believe, VoxOUT.
Yes, that's correct. So I'm going to put up the screen share. So is anyone seeing the slides? The slide I'm showing?
Yeah, it works. Let me focus on that slide. If it was possible to make it a little larger, that'd be good. But I know there are limits to what you can do in screen share.
Yeah, I tried it before. It doesn't get any bigger than this.
Okay.
So we'll have to do it with this.
Let's try and proceed. And you know what? We can give a download URL later for people if they would like to look at the slides, I think, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Dries. I'm going to leave you with the microphone and slip out. And you pause once in a while for questions so that people have them they can ask. And other than that, I'll be back whenever you need me.
Okay. Thanks, Randy. Okay. The story I'm going to tell is organized in 3 parts. First, I'm going to explain a bit the context, the bigger context of what's happening in the industry that made us start working on VoxOUT. Then, as a result of the context, in today's voice over IP service offerings, especially towards the B2B market, there are problems. There are things that are not possible today. And only at the end, I will explain a bit into more detail what VoxOUT actually is. So you'll have to wait until the end before you know what we're doing. So, important is the evolution towards voice over IP has happened in different steps. So the first evolution, and now everybody is on there, is that enterprises move to voice over IP for their internal communication networks. So, but what happens there is that a lot of the corporations, they use voice over IP internally, but towards the external world, they are still on PSTN. Now, there is a second evolution that is taking place now, is that compared to the previous evolution, multinational companies, they had a PBX at every site in every country, or even at multiple sites in the same country, they had a single PBX that was connected to the PSTN network. What happened?
Okay, we seem to have a little bit of problem in that this is not your $1 million a second satellite. James is shaking his head. I'm not hearing Dries anymore, though. Am I the only one? I think not.
No, he's gone.
Okay. But we've got his... Oh, you know what? Here he comes. Oh, boy. God, if anybody's got the bandwidth they do, come on, guys. Maybe it's Google.
I'm not seeing the screen share in the YouTube feed.
Well, you're not now because I got off of it for a second when I came in here. There's the screen share,
Okay.
but and I don't know, there could be 20 seconds lag there. Dries, I am not hearing you. No one is, actually.
So why again has VoIP not completely taken over traditional telephony? I just don't get it. It's cheaper, right?
What's the opposite of over the top?
Okay. So we're Over the top. All right, these are certainly not Voxbone's fault, nor are they mine. Okay, they're calling back in.
There we go.
6 feet under, is that the opposite?
These things happen. Yeah. Over the top. Carl Fife is with us. Carl, it was suggested that we pay your way to Berlin so that you can ask that last question.
Hey, telepresence, man.
You guys have any, do you have any miles that you could help us out with?
So you'll have to fill me in. I just haven't been paying attention. What's in Berlin? I mean,
Camaillo World.
oh,
Oops, I just...
yeah. It doesn't take a whole lot to get me to go to Berlin, honestly.
Okay. Looks like Dries is back. Can you hear me, Dries? Wow, there is a bandwidth issue here, oddly enough. I don't know what's going on, because his video is frozen.
So how's he connecting in? Do we know?
Now joining. Now muted.
I don't.
Press *6 to unmute. 19. Other participants. Mute. 19. Other participants. Mute. 19. Other participants.
Good heavens! This is fabulous. I love this. See, this makes my day. This kind of thing. All right.
This is the cutting part of the cutting edge.
Exactly, or the edge part of the cutting edge.
Cutting, exactly.
Not sure which. Over the edge.
It's the painful part of the cutting edge.
This is the
The blood.
The fiscal cliff equivalent of VoIP and IP. It's the IP fiscal cliff.
So as a small distraction, I'll tell you what I've been doing today.
Hello.
Which is
Hello.
Voxbone
is back.
Tim, save that thought for
Save that thought,
session.
Tim. Okay.
hear me?
I do, but where are you? You're calling back in through Vox through.
Yeah, now I'm calling in through Voxbone. Previously, I was connected using the Hangout, but suddenly the Hangout kicked me out.
Yeah.
So I'm now using Voxbone, and it works better.
Okay.
We offended the mighty Google.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. But you're still in the Hangout with the slide, but I guess you're frozen out of the Hangout for that? Is that it?
No. Now the Hangout, I restarted the Hangout, and I'm now going to use the Hangout only for the slides.
Okay.
And I'm going to do voice using the PSTN.
Okay, that's fine. There may be a little bit of lag. That's not a problem. Otherwise, I can try to follow you with the slides. But let's try this first. It'd be better. So let me disappear, and you can take it from a little bit before when you think you dropped out, because I think you were out for about 30 seconds or a minute before.
Okay. the global voice service provider, which may be located in the US using IP. And then if the call needs to be sent to a telephone number, no matter which regular telephone number in Belgium, well, the global service provider most often uses traditional voice carrier services. Now this works for regular telephone numbers, fixed or mobile. However, what often doesn't work with international voice carriers is special numbers. So what are these special numbers? It's toll-free numbers, for example. Local toll-free numbers often are not reachable using international voice carriers. National share cost numbers, short numbers, for example, for information service or for the public directory. And what never works using international voice carriers is emergency services. So these global voice service providers have a problem because if they would want to offer access to emergency numbers, they would have to implement a local interconnection to a local network provider in every country and implement the complex routing logic that is always associated to calling emergency services. So that's a bit the problem I just described. Is it for these global service providers, global VoIP communication providers, is it feasible to build links to all countries where multinationals have a site in order to offer for their customer access to emergency services? So for some service providers it is possible. The big guys like level 3, they have the means to do it. However, it's not very cost efficient. And then for other service providers like cloud communication providers such as 8x8, for them it would be even impossible from a business case perspective to do such things. So here we come to the fundament of the problem. That is that there is a tension between 3 domains that will not be solved in the near future. First of all, you have communication service providers such as 8x8 who offer VoIP-based enterprise telephony services. They make no boundaries anymore between fixed and mobile telecommunications. They have advanced PBX services that offer unified communications, etc. Then on the other side, there is the local telecom regulations, who still impose a set of restrictions or obligations to anyone offering a local telecom service, whether or not that telecom service is using the PSTN, or if the telecom service is based on is using IP as a technology. But a couple of points that are specific to telecom regulations, especially in Europe, that is, for example, fixed telephone numbers cannot, by law, be used for mobile communications. So unified communication services, such as offered by Link, where you have a telephone client on your smartphone, which uses your fixed telephone number of the office, well, in theory, according to regulations, that cannot be done. What is also part of telecom regulations across Europe is that any telecommunication service provider must offer access to emergency services. So you cannot offer, for example, a cloud PBX service in Belgium without offering access to the local emergency services. That's prohibited by law. And then a difference in European regulations with regards to the US is that the access to the emergency service can only be offered by the service provider operating the number or the telephone service. This is different than compared to the US, where you have 911 wholesale services offered by service providers that do not operate the telephone service themselves. And then there's a third domain that is important, and that's the speed at which the public services go towards voice over IP, and they are slower than the enterprise telephony market. That is 911, or in Europe 112 services, are only reachable via the PSTN. They are not reachable via voice over IP in any way. The location information that is used by these emergency services is a physical address. So which means that, and the physical address is static. It cannot be updated every hour if you change location. That's impossible. It is assumed that your address that corresponds to, that is associated to the telephony service is static. It doesn't change. So they are not capable of dealing with mobility for fixed telecommunication services. So cloud communication providers or enterprise voice over IP service providers are dealing with this in different ways today because there's no appropriate solution. What a couple of big providers do, but it's very limited, is indeed they offer a voice over IP based enterprise telephony service, but for the access to services like emergency, they implement a local voice interconnection with a PSTN provider, and they implement the often complex routing towards these emergency services. But that's really the exception today. What other service providers do, and that happens more often, is they have a voice over IP based solution, but then at every site of the company they install a local PSTN to voice over IP gateway just for the purpose of emergency calling. But this is something that is quite complex because a specific gateway needs to be installed, integrated and managed. Specific lines need to be ordered and provisioned by the local incumbent. So it's quite a lot of hassle in order to comply with the regulations. And then what a lot of cloud communication providers do today is do nothing. So they offer a telephone service that is capable of calling regular fixed and mobile numbers, but without the possibility to dial 911 or 112. So that's the context. That's today's. That's the context. That's the problems that are a reality of today with enterprise voice over IP offerings in Europe. So that's how, as we have a lot of cloud communication providers, and we have listened to their needs. 2 years ago, we have started working on the solution VoxOUT, and next Tuesday we are officially going to launch it. So the press release is scheduled for next Tuesday. So this is an avant-premiere. I don't know how, if in English the word is the same, but it's you guys have the honor to be the first to listen to the story. So what is Voxbone doing with VoxOUT? So until today, we were a DID provider. So as I said in the beginning, we are interconnected with local PSTN networks in 50 countries. And we offer telephone numbers and inbound communications. So we linked the local PSTN networks to IP communications in one direction. What we are adding today is communications into the other direction. And then more specifically, something that is missing today is the access to these emergency services. So we collect calls, inbound calls to our numbers with the service is called VoxID. This is what we have been selling for the last 7-8 years. And now we offer outbound services, but only one specific thing that cannot be offered by the international voice carriers like Bix and Tata. So how does it work? This is a bit a simplified call flow. So on the left side, there's the network infrastructure or the communications infrastructure of our customer, a cloud communications or cloud PBX service provider. And this customer gets from his customer a call to the emergency service, which is in Europe and in a lot of countries it is 112. So the cloud communication provider sends the call to Voxbone, to Voxbone's network. So what we do is we look at the originating CLI and we do a lookup in our location database on what is the address of this end user. We look up what is the emergency number he has dialed, because in quite a lot of European countries you have multiple emergency numbers. And then we look at what the local telephone number is of the right local emergency center. Because 112 is, it is let's say the way you make the call, but it is always translated to a local telephone number of a local emergency number. So, and that's what we do. We translate the 112 to the right local telephone number of the right local emergency center. So then we bring the call to the right gateway of the country of the end user, and we bring it on the PSTN network and deliver it to the right center. Okay, I noticed that there is a question.
Now, James has a question, and
Yes,
if he unmutes himself quickly enough, he will be able to ask it himself. He looks like he's the spy who came in from the cold.
There we are. Can you hear me?
Go, James.
Yep.
Yeah, my question is to you, Dries, is are there any restrictions to the outbound, to what outbound CLI you can present on this? Or can you present any one of your own numbers on the outbound call to the emergency services?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The one restriction is that it should be Voxbone numbers. As I said a bit before, in Europe you can only offer 911 service on your own telephone numbers. So that's restriction number one. Restriction number two is that we activate the emergency service on a per number basis, and we only do that if we have received a location for that number. So our customers, the cloud PBX provider, needs to request the activation of the emergency service on a per number basis, and he does that by providing us the right location information.
Okay, so in the short term, that means that the service is limited to fixed VoIP services, not mobile ones, I guess.
Yes, but Voxbone today we only offer fixed telephone numbers. Yes. For mobile numbers, emergency services work differently. What we have implemented here is for every country we offer this service in, and I noticed that some of you asked the question which countries it will be deployed in, but I'm going to come back to that later. What we do is we offer an emergency service for a fixed telecommunication service, whether or not this is a business service or a residential service, that is compliant to the local regulations. Okay?
Okay.
Another question I saw, will we offer this service only to large service providers? Will we also offer it to small cloud communication providers? We offer it to both. The way we are offering this service is we charge on a monthly fee per number. So if you're a small service provider and you have a couple of hundreds of numbers, the fees will be limited. If you're a big service provider, then of course they will pay more. But so with our pricing model, we also enable smaller cloud communication providers to be compliant with the regulations.
Okay, that's an interesting business model. The ones that I've seen around who do a similar sort of thing actually charge on a per call or per transaction basis, which is great because you can actually have a whole load of numbers, and as long as they don't make very many calls to the emergency services, it works out to be reasonably cost effective.
Yes. All right. Next, so a slide on provisioning. So today at Voxbone, we have a fully automated provisioning system. Today you can order telephone numbers, order call capacity, configure codecs, etc., either via an online web portal or via our API. For the activation of emergency services, it will be the same way. These are things that we will add in our web portal, and for the web portal will mostly be used for the provisioning of single numbers or a limited amount of numbers. It will be available on our API, so we can integrate the provisioning with the provisioning systems of our customers. But we start with bulk provisioning. So today the provisioning is done using CSV files. So if you want to activate emergency on a set of numbers, you provide us a CSV file with a number and the corresponding address. The file can be uploaded on our web portal, and then as from then the provisioning automatically starts. And so what we do, one of the things we do is, of course, we enable the routing in our network, but we also provision the local emergency databases, because in every country there is a local address database that the emergency centers use to find the location in case the end user would not be able to tell over the phone where he is. So it's mandatory that addresses are stored in these databases. So that's one of the things we do. We do the correct routing, and we make sure that for every telephone number that has the service activated, the address is published in the local emergency database. Voila. Now, good question. In which countries does Voxbone offer this service? So we launch with 7 countries that are fully tested and ready. So which are these countries? It's the UK, Belgium, France, Denmark, Luxembourg, Ireland, and Germany are ready today. Sweden will be added in the coming weeks. And then on our roadmap are Spain, Italy, and Switzerland will be added next. Now, what is important is we will not stop there. As for our inbound voice services, we offer today the service in 50 countries. So we will go further with increasing our coverage for the emergency services as well. What we have done over the last couple of years is to build, let's say, an entirely new platform and a very dynamic framework that allows us to add new countries quickly. So we will launch this service, and then based on the amount of our customers, we will expand to either other European countries that are missing, but we are also prepared to expand this service outside Europe, depending on the demand of our customers. So voilà.
Well, indeed. Let's take just a moment to encourage people. If you have questions, as you can see, they're being addressed in, they're seen in IRC. If you're not watching this, by the way, get a load of James's hat and the lens flare just above it, by the way. Very nice furry hat he's wearing. If you have questions, please put them in the IRC. You can also put them in YouTube on that thing if you want to put them as comments, or the best is to this is great. The best is to if you're called in, to unmute yourself with *6 and ask the questions. So with that, we'll take a little pause here of silence and ask if anyone would like to ask a question. Just unmute yourself or say something on IRC so that I can unmute you. And James lost his hat. Okay, I've been stalling so that you can ask your questions. Here we go. We're going to take a pause. Anyone?
Well, if no one else wants to go, I've got another one. It's to do with there are a whole raft of different short codes that can be dialed. So in addition to the emergency services, there's a whole load of informational type services, less than full emergency. How far down the hierarchy of those short dial codes will VoxOUT go? And will there be a place where the numbers that are supported are published? And last part of that is, if you dial a short code which is not supported, what happens?
So the first question, we offer access to all official emergency numbers. So in UK there are 2. In Belgium there are about 10 different emergency numbers. So you have 100 for the police, you have 101 for for fire, you have 108 for missing children, you have 112 for a general emergency service. So all official emergency numbers for which the government obliges service providers to offer access to are supported.
Okay, that's quite clear. So it's just the mandatory ones we're talking about.
It is the mandatory ones. But that's not emergency services anymore. You have other short codes, for example, to call, to look up a telephone number in the public directory, which is something that we do not do yet, because we decided to focus on emergency services yet. But it is not excluded, or it would be a logic step that we also start offering access to other special numbers that international voice carriers do not offer, like short numbers that can be dialed for public information services. But today, not. Today, in the beginning, we started by focusing on something that is a regulatory obligation and a commercial requirement for an enterprise voice over IP service.
Okay, certainly in the UK, there's a list of numbers which are not emergency numbers, but which all of the mobile operators do support. So, for example, the child line number, which is if a child is having problems with anything, the child can go and they can phone this short number, memorable number. I can't remember what it is because I'm not a child, so I wouldn't want to phone it. But all of the UK mobile operators support those numbers, and it would be really useful if VoxOUT supported those numbers too. But they're not government numbers, and they're not mandatory, but all of the UK mobile operators support them.
I would have to look if we do that for UK. I know that we're doing it for Belgium. So for Belgium, we offer the access to the number for missing children. I'm not sure about UK. But if it's something that is common and known in the country as an emergency service, if it's unofficial or not, then we will support it. Yes.
Okay, and sorry for this, but I've got yet another question as well. Going back to the location reporting, how do you take the location information at the moment? You said you have to have a location mapped against each number, but what format do you take that input in?
So today it's a CSV file. So you can upload on the Voxbone web portal a pre-formatted CSV. So if you become a customer, we give you the template. So and every line in that CSV file, you have a line in the CSV file for every number, and then in the columns you have the location information. You have the first name, last name, street, house number, postal code, city, and that information is different, or the structure of that information and the amount of information required by the local emergency service is different on a country-per-country basis. Is that clear?
Just for clarity, there's no way at the moment you can support with either nomadic or mobile VoIP users. So if you have a user whose location can change, you can't currently support that.
No, we cannot support that, but it's also legally not allowed. And I don't know the situation in every country by heart, but for example, in Belgium, a telecommunication service using a nomadic telephone number can by law not offer access to an emergency service. So service providers using it must block with an IVR message the access to 112.
You know, that's one of the craziest things I've heard in a long while. So if you've got an emergency going on and you've got a VoIP phone, you can't call the emergency services.
That's correct. And
I have to say that is one of the strangest bits of legislation I've heard in a long time, even coming out of Belgium.
It's what I said, that telecommunications is moving ahead, becomes mobile with smartphone clients you can use to call with your office phone telephone number. So that's the reality in the market. But legislation, European legislation, is still not at the stage where they have made up their mind on how they're going to deal with that, because they are not able to deal with a not fixed location.
Okay, well that needs to be fixed, I think. In UK, calls from VoIP or nomadic VoIP is supported, but they have to be routed to a specific emergency handling center where they have specially trained operatives who determine the location of the calling party, normally by asking the person who's calling. But it was decided that that is less dangerous than just saying, no, you can't make a call, emergency call, because you might end up with somebody in a life-threatening situation, and the only means of calling for assistance he has is his nomadic VoIP. And if it doesn't work, then it could be very bad.
Yep. That's why in UK we do offer the possibility for nomadic numbers to call the emergency center. But then, for example, in Belgium, we also have a range of nomadic numbers, and therefore, for these numbers, we cannot offer it.
Okay. I'll be quiet now. I've taken enough of your time. Has anybody else got any questions?
Any questions anywhere?
I've got a question, of course. Hey. So you were mentioning this kind of common architecture by which global companies will have one cloud PBX, and then they'll route everything back to there, and then from that central point, they'll route their calls. And my question about this architecture is, when you obviously with VoIP, you have this abstraction between call setup, call data, and then call media. So when you are describing this, are you talking about hauling the media back to one physical location on the planet and then turning around and setting it to its final destination? Because if so, that seems like it would have some performance implications that would be extremely important to consider.
Yes, but that depends on the telephony infrastructure that is used and how the service provider deals with this. We see that also in our customer base, that our customers deal with this differently. Sometimes it's only the signaling, and then the media flow is set up between the endpoints, and sometimes also the media goes back to the service platforms. It depends on the provider, and it depends on the technology. So it's not something that we control or we influence. We send the media to where the customer wants us to send the media.
Mm-hmm. I see. Seems like it'd be a tough hurdle to overcome. You'd have to have an awful lot of benefit to pick up that much latency, liability, etc. Especially if you're doing over-the-top networking.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Who else has a question? Here's a unique opportunity to get it from the source. We'll leave a little space here because I know it takes time to unmute and all that. Okay, going once.
I got another question.
Hey,
yeah.
They're always wait. Your questions are always welcome, Carl. But you realize that we have a file for that. Here we go.
And now here's Carl Fife with one final question. Carl.
It doesn't have to be final, actually, but
well, I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, I have to make sure I keep one for the end. Right?
Yeah.
So you were saying that that you sort of don't differentiate, or there's a kind of a trend toward not differentiating between terrestrial and mobile calls, and I'm wondering what that looks like on a provider side, because if I understand correctly, it's still they're still billed in a vastly different way. I know, for example, there's calling party pays to most mobile networks, and calling party usually has no contract. Therefore, calling party usually is what's the technical term? Reamed by this opportunistic billing. So whereas a usual and customary connection rate is less than 1 cent a minute, kind of an anonymous carrier termination to a European mobile network, for example, could cost say 20 times usual and customary termination rates. So what does that look like from your perspective?
Indeed, it will, by the time that numbering and networks and termination rates are at similar levels, we're talking more than 10 years. But in the use case I was referring to is, for example, Microsoft Link. For Microsoft Link, you have a soft phone client that you can use when you're abroad and you're on Wi-Fi in a hotel. You can use the smartphone client and make a call as if you were in the office. So with your office telephone number.
I see.
So that's the type of mobility I'm talking about.
I see. I see.
And that's the type of mobility that is a reality of today.
Right.
But that the legislations in Europe and I imagine all over the world are not capable to deal with properly, especially with regards to emergency services.
Right.
But regardless that, it's a fact that emergency services have to be offered by anyone offering a telecommunication service, and that's what we offer today. Something that makes you comply with the law and allows end users to call 911.
So here's a follow-up question to that. You're talking about providing emergency services. I've noticed very recently that there are a number of service providers who provide commodity 911 termination. So, for example, in my stack of SIP providers that I can use opportunistically in my outbound routing, I have one that is a special emergency services provider. So I essentially, if I need to make a 911 call, and all I have is sort of commodity what do they call it, landline replacement service type terminators, rather just kind of wholesale type termination providers, I can choose the 911 provider, and they will route that to the PSAP with the number that I give them. And of course, it's really cheap. I mean, I can get commodity 911 termination either on a per termination basis or on a monthly subscription basis, and it really took me by surprise to see that, you know, yet another component of telephony was being parceled out and offered as a commodity. So now you can get CNAME lookup, you can get LIDBI service, you can get origination, you can get termination, you can get emergency services, all from different providers. And so I'm wondering what that looks like from your perspective. How does that change things? And are you seeing that all over the world instead of just like in this, you know, of course, in the one jurisdiction that I care about, the one I have to operate in?
The situation is different in the US than in Europe. There are, to my knowledge, only 2 countries in the world where today 911 is offered as a wholesale service, and that's the US and Canada, in North America, and UK. And elsewhere, as far as we know, it doesn't exist as a wholesale service. And the reason for that is simple. That is that only the operator of the number can offer access to the emergency centers. It cannot be offered by a third party.
Is that generally a legal limitation, or is that a technical limitation by virtue of some aspect of their network architecture?
That's a regulatory. It's a regulatory thing.
Yeah, better term.
Yeah. So that's mainly why it is commonly available in the US. Any private company can offer it. It's a different case in Europe, and that's also the main reason why we can only offer it on our own numbers or ported in numbers that are operated on our network.
I see. I see. Yeah. Yeah. My observation here is that that they'll provide 911 services on numbers that don't belong to them. Obviously, they would have to because they're not in the termination service.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right.
Do you think that trend is going to continue toward, further and further compartmentalizing and commoditizing the component parts of the telephony infrastructure, and do you think that's a good thing, or do you think that's detrimental to the quality of the service or to the overall growth of the industry in some way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tough question indeed. That's a nice one. Yeah, it's a good question. I think it would be beneficial that it would not be linked, because if it would not be linked, it would be easier to offer it.
Yeah, right.
So I think it would be good, but just as even better or more important, I would think that end users, also mobile, using their fixed numbers, would be allowed to call emergency numbers. That I would even find better. There's a lot of things where legislation is years and years and years behind the reality. And it's not good for the end user. I agree with that.
Have you ever heard of any fallout in response to things like I've got some some person on a soft client in a hotel in far away Astan, and they're making a call presumably from from Southern California, and 911 call comes in, and the end user is completely oblivious to the fact that there should be any problem, having that result in location of their mobile location rather than their asserted location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think in practice it is a big problem, as long as you're not too far from the location you are officially at. So if you then are in the same area, then it won't be a problem. However, if you're far away from your official address, you will be calling the emergency center that is far away from you. So that would mean that these guys would need to look up the right emergency center near your real location and deliver the call there, which is almost in every country not possible. Right. So it may sound surprisingly, because throughout this project on which we have been working a long time, I had a lot of surprises with things I thought, how is this possible? But it is a reality that if these emergency centers, they get a call from somebody who is elsewhere than what he says, that they are not able to deal with that situation and get the call to the right center.
Yeah.
Efficiently, at least.
These mobile clients. What is the kind of the best, the current thinking as far as the best way to assert identity? I mean, on the one hand, you could trace it to IP numbers, but it occurs to me that that somebody like me, when I travel, especially if I'm international, I'll typically tunnel back to a domestic gateway so that it doesn't break the things that I normally do online, like I don't have ACL problems, or I'm not entering my Google account from a foreign address, therefore triggering all kinds of whatever policy restrictions on whether or not I can stream Pandora, et cetera, et cetera. So it occurs to me that if the intent was to sort of base this on the geography of the originating IP address, that could be, could run afoul of the different connection technologies that people use.
Yeah, but these discussions have been ongoing for already 10 years. Indeed, IP address is one of the options. GPS locations is one of the options, but nobody agrees on something workable, acceptable until now. So I think today we are still as far as 10 years ago in that perspective, and nothing has changed. For fixed telephony, it is a physical address, and the only thing that I would find already a step forward is that address updates or location updates could be done dynamically. Right. That you could update your address or your location, let's say, on an hourly basis.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. And then for mobile, it is location coordinates. Then other than that, a lot of discussions have been done, but nothing has been decided or changed until now.
I see. Yeah, thanks for answering all these questions. I know it's kind of drilling very, very deep in what's a very broad area. Your area has a lot of different things. So thanks for indulging me.
Thanks for asking. Thanks for asking, Carl. Let's just see if there's anybody else who has any questions that haven't been voiced. And did I see that Tim maybe wanted to ask a question, or was that for something else?
Well, it's not exactly a question, but I was talking the other night to a guy who's marketing a campus security solution for universities, and I was talking to him about this kind of thing, and he was saying, oh no, basically we discourage people from dialing 112 or 999 or whatever your local emergency number is, and we encourage them to use the campus security app that's part of their timetable app on their smartphone, because his argument is that the local campus security are all trained in first aid, and if somebody passes out, then you'll get a first aider there faster if you press the button on your app and get campus security to your room than you will if you dial 999 and they have to send an ambulance. So I thought it was a fascinating discussion, and basically he's saying, well, why would you bother with a phone? They don't want to use phones anyway, which I thought was like. So I suppose my question is, if the standards bodies spend so long debating this that the web overtakes them with a new reality, will that be a problem?
No, I don't think so, because the use case you are describing here probably already in a lot of enterprises are implemented. I could think that within the enterprise, if somebody from his desk phone dials 112, that the call is not immediately put through to the PSTN network and the emergency center. I would think, but I don't know that, but I would think that, for example, as a first step, it is the call is sent to the enterprise security or first aid team, and that they then decide to call 112, something like that. It's more how the enterprise or any other institution is organized internally to deal with that. But in a second phase, if this first aid team sees that it's urgent and important, they need to be able to call the real 911 or 112 service in a second stage. So I think it's two complementary things.
Hello? Tim may have dropped out. Typically, Dries, I don't like to keep people forever, and in this case, you're in my time zone, and it's like after 7 o'clock. So let's have a last call for questions and make sure that we covered everything that you want to cover. Anyone else have anything further? I think Tim may have dropped out. I don't know if he comes back. He knows how to give us a shout. Anyone have any final questions?
A very quick one. What is
Other than
the?
Carl.
Oh, sorry.
No, go.
Yeah.
James.
What is the official launch date for VoxOUT? When can we actually look forward to buying it?
Next Tuesday. But if you really need it urgently, I could sell it already to you today.
Oh, Dries, you're just so good.
I love that.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Dries, did we? Is there anything that we should say that we haven't said? Because people don't always ask all the questions. You think we missed anything?
No, I don't think so. And we will launch this service. So also offline after this call, people can contact me to ask their questions. That's not a problem.
Okay, let me.
No,
I was just going to say, as far as people contacting you, I assume there's a way to do that maybe on the website. I don't like to give email addresses out here, but there's another thing you could do is you're on Google+. So Google+ is a real name service. You're probably on LinkedIn as well, I'm going to guess. But people should reach out to you, Dries Plasman, or just do a contact thing on the website of Voxbone. And this is one of the nice things about the VUC is that people may well come back to you with feedback or questions or possibly even use cases.
Okay, sure, great. Looking forward to it.
James, did you have a last question? You were waving your hand in an uncouth manner.
No, I saw I was reaching out to Dries in kind of this way like that.
Okay, well, reach out. All of you reach out to Dries. Thank you, Dries. I'm going to set up the music here. There'll have to be a little bit of an edit on the YouTube video, so it won't be visible right away because apparently there was, well, it's a long story, but there was not audio for part of it because I was trying to full screen you. So we'll get over that technical aspect. But I want to thank you very much. We really appreciate what Voxbone does for the VUC, first of all, and all the contact we've had with you guys, and really pleased to have you with us, Dries. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Randy.
Okay,
Weekend.
Thanks everybody, you too, and thanks for staying so late. We're going to go out with a little music. Thank you to whoever's managing the Voxbone on IRC as well. Go out with a little music. Come to part 2, the mature audiences only version of the VUC in just a second. Thanks for staying on to the end of the VUC. VoIP and Tel, we're at vuc.me. And of course, as always, thanks to Voxeo Labs for their continued support, as well as Sangoma.com, OnSIP.com, E4Strategies.com, and of course, the great sound of ZipDX.com, Conference Bridge, and the dial-ins of Voxbone.com. If you happen to be in Europe or in range of Berlin, April 15th through 17th, come to Kamaillo World. Meet up with the VUC. We'd love to see you there. vuc.me/K as in Kamaillo. See you next week. Well, that was a little abrupt. I'm going to kill the broadcast here.